Hi guys, welcome to Robin Hood Diaries again tonight. I'm really glad you could be here with me, as always. I promise no more travel logs to the South Pacific tonight. Actually, it's kind of old home week night for me, so to speak, because we're going to talk about the Whiskey A Go-Go. Now, as you all know from my shows, I'm a dyed-in-the-wool Angelino, born and raised right in the middle, and actually, even though they were in Beverly Hills, I was born like right in the middle of Hollywood, which is now the Scientology Church, which was Cedars of Lebanon Hospital. I totally digress. So I have a long history with the Whiskey A Go-Go, believe it or not, from let's say 78 through 82. This also coincided with this time, which I'll probably maybe make a little bit more of a show, mini show at some point about this like kind of relatively abrupt transition from disco boy, so to speak, to hardcore punk rocker, so to speak, by 80, 81-ish. So my long history, so to speak, with the Whiskey A Go-Go, late 70s, I was running, my father was running, my good friend was running with a rock and roll musician by the name of Robbie Romero. He had one hit, very modest hit called Roses and Candy. This was, I think, 79-ish, now we're talking. And like I said, we ran a lot with him. He was in with a rock and roll scene because he was in a band, his own band, him. And I was exposed to other bands through him. I was exposed to all kinds of music over these few years, Devo even, from I showed him, he showed me, and he was 19 when I met him. I was, I don't know, whatever, 13. So we kind of sort of grew up together, but he was, you know, in this rock scene. So I sort of glommed on to him. My dad loved being around him. My friend Delia loved being around him. He actually briefly dated one of my musical heroes, Ronnie Blakely, who I talked about the other night in my show about the Palomino. Again, I digress. So I'm running with Robbie, and this is like an immersion of sorts into like rock and roll, like firsthand, you know, like one-to-one experiences right on stages, in studios, making recordings and so forth. So I now am with him at a point where he is booking gigs at the Whiskey, right? He booked some gigs here and there, but he really did performing and recording separate from the Whiskey. He seemed to always be playing the Whiskey, not maybe twice. So for me, that's a lot, you know, 79, you know, and I'm like doing this weird shift from pop music into rock and roll. You know, remember I heard the Pretenders album, first album, and I was never the same again. Missed their concert at the Whiskey later on. Missed another one I'll tell you about. But, so here we are at the Whiskey. He's opening twice. First time was for a band called the Orchids, which is a band that I love. They went nowhere. There was like one scratchy television video of them on YouTube, I think. And I adored them. Kind of Go-Go's-ish, but not kind of my puppies, but not quite. A little bit more on the rock side of that. He also opened for Quiet Riot. Now you probably are familiar with that band. I don't know what to call them. Some kind of metal something or other. Really weird, like metal Cheap Trick, bad metal Cheap Trick. Can you imagine? Oh, I mean, I'm sure you can. You know who Quiet Riot is. Not my favorite. But he's walking around with like the microphone stand in his mouth. So Robbie opened for them. So in and around this time that he opened for the Orchids, he opened for Quiet Riot, I was of course able to go backstage at the Whiskey. So that's one of my, you know, big life takeaways, not necessarily a bucket list,